The text arrived as I was folding laundry. "Hey sweetie, just a heads up. Christmas is going to be simple this year. Money's tight, so we're only doing the essentials. No big gifts." I stared at the message, my fingers tightening around the fabric in my hands. It wasn't surprising. My parents had always been practical about Christmas, never ones to go overboard. But something about this message felt. It wasn't just about cutting back. It carried a sense of finality, as if the decision had been made without me. Still, I forced a smile and typed back, "Of course, no worries. The kids will understand." What else could I say? My husband and I weren't exactly flush with cash either, but we always made Christmas special for our twins, Mia and Lucas. We saved all year, picked out thoughtful gifts and wrapped them with care. It was never extravagant, but it was magical. I swallowed my disappointment and let it go. After all, Christmas wasn't about presents. It was about family. That's what I told myself. That's what I believed. Until the photos appeared on my screen. 2 days after Christmas, I was lounging on the couch while the kids played with their new toys. My husband was fixing a leaky faucet and I was mindlessly scrolling through social media when I saw it. "Best Christmas ever." My sister's caption sat above a carousel of photos. The first image was my parents' living room, except it was unrecognizable. A massive tree twinkled with white lights, its branches weighed down by elegant red and gold ornaments. Beneath it, a mountain of presents wrapped in silver and gold sprawled across the floor. At the center of it all sat my nieces, my sister's daughters, tearing into expensive gifts. Designer sneakers, high-end electronics, a brand new tablet in my youngest niece's hands. I froze. My heart pounded. We hadn't been invited. No one had mentioned a family Christmas gathering. For us, the holiday had been quiet, just my husband, the twins, and me. A simple dinner at home. Modest gifts exchanged. Christmas movies on the couch. No grandparents. No cousins. No big celebration. Because apparently this year we weren't part of the family. I scrolled through the photos again. Hoping I had misunderstood, I searched for another explanation. Maybe this was an old post, a memory from last year. But no. The timestamp was clear. This had happened this Christmas. I checked my messages. Nothing from Mom. Nothing from Dad. No invitation. No mention. I swallowed hard. Had they even thought about Mia and Lucas while watching my nieces unwrap what had to be hundreds, maybe thousands, of dollars in gifts? Had they cared? A knot formed in my stomach. I didn't want to assume the worst. Maybe there was a reason. Maybe. But deep down I already knew the truth. They had lied to me. Not just about money. Not just about the gifts. They had lied about us, about what we meant to them. I wasn't angry at my nieces. They were just kids. I wasn't even angry at my sister. I had long accepted that she was my parents' favorite. But my parents, the ones who raised me, the ones who always said Christmas wasn't about presents, that family mattered most, had deliberately excluded us from something that should have been for all of us. And the worst part? They had let my children believe Christmas had to be small and simple, that there was no other choice. Yet for my sister's kids, it had been grand and extravagant. I stared at my screen for a long time. Then without hesitation I went to my contacts and blocked their numbers. Not out of anger. Not out of pettiness. But because sometimes, the people who are supposed to love you the most are the ones who hurt you the deepest. And this year my Christmas gift to myself was peace. Blocking their numbers should have felt like closure. Instead it felt like an open wound. The days after Christmas blurred together. I went through the motions, cooking, cleaning, playing with Mia and Lucas, but inside I felt hollow. The betrayal sat in my chest like a weight I couldn't shake. David noticed. "You okay?" he asked one evening as we put the kids to bed. His voice was careful, knowing. I hesitated. "Yeah. Just tired." I pressed a kiss to Mia's forehead and switched off the light. He didn't push, but I saw it, the way his brow furrowed when he caught me staring off into space. Because how do you say out loud, "My own parents don't care about me"? How do you admit you weren't just left out? You were discarded. I expected them to reach out. A call. A text. Some excuse, some last-minute attempt to soften the blow. But nothing came. The silence stretched for days. Then finally my sister's name popped up on my screen. I let it ring. Once. Twice. Over and over. Then a text came through. I saw you blocked Mom and Dad. What is wrong with you? Not I'm sorry. Not we should talk. Not even a hint of guilt or understanding. Just accusation. I stared at the message, my pulse pounding in my ears. What was wrong with me? David found me sitting on the edge of our bed, gripping my phone like it might break in my hands. They didn't even try to deny it, I whispered. He sat beside me. They knew what they were doing, Daisy. And they don't care that it hurt you. I exhaled shakily. I keep trying to tell myself maybe I misunderstood. Maybe they had a reason. David shook his head. Stop. Stop making excuses for them. They made a choice. Tears burned behind my eyes. He was right. They had chosen my sister. Chosen her kids. Chosen to lie to me, to let my children believe Christmas had to be small and simple while somewhere else they were celebrating with a tree full of gifts and laughter. That wasn't an accident. That was deliberate. That was a decision. The next day I finally responded to my sister's message. They told me they couldn't afford Christmas gifts for my kids this year. But they could afford a full celebration for yours. They could afford luxury gifts, expensive decorations, a party. But they couldn't even invite us. Explain that to me. Her reply came almost instantly. It's not a big deal, Daisy. Mom and Dad just wanted to do something nice for the girls. You're overreacting. My stomach dropped. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't just about Christmas. This was how they saw me. Less than an afterthought, the child who didn't matter as much. And for the first time in my life I stopped pretending otherwise. I stared at my sister's message for a long time before typing my final response. I hope your daughters had a great Christmas. Mine had to settle for small and simple, because that's what Mom and Dad told me we could afford. And now I know where I stand in this family. So do me a favor, don't contact me again. I hit send. Then I deleted the thread and blocked her too. Not out of anger. Not out of revenge. But because I was done. Done begging for scraps of love. Done pretending I mattered. Done waiting for my parents to treat me like family when they had already made it clear I wasn't. I put my phone down and exhaled deeply. For the first time since Christmas I felt lighter. The weight of their rejection still lingered, but now I wasn't holding on to it. For the first time in my life my phone was silent. No messages from my parents. No passive-aggressive texts from my sister. No guilt-tripping calls, trying to smooth things over without ever acknowledging what they had done. Just silence. And it should have been a relief. But in the days that followed I caught myself reaching for my phone out of habit, a part of me hoping my mom would call and say, "Sweetheart, this is just a misunderstanding." I wanted my dad to step in and say, "We never meant to hurt you." But that didn't happen. Because the truth was they had meant to do exactly what they did. And they didn't regret it. I should have expected the gossip. It started small. A mutual friend casually mentioning that my sister had been venting about me. Then another reached out. "Hey, is everything okay with your family? Your mom seems upset." Upset. She was upset. She had cut me out of Christmas, given my sister's kids everything, let my children believe there was nothing to give. And she was upset? I ignored the messages. But then David came home from work one evening, his face tense. "Your dad called me," he said. I stiffened. "What?" "He's worried about you. Says you're acting irrationally by cutting off the family." I let out a short, humorless laugh. "So I'm the irrational one? Not the people who lied to me and excluded my kids from Christmas." David shook his head. "I told him you were done being treated like you don't matter. And you know what he said?" I crossed my arms, bracing myself. "What?" "You don't cut off family. No matter what." A slow, burning anger rose in my chest. No matter what? I repeated. Even if family lies. Even if they show favoritism. Even if they hurt you. David nodded grimly. It's the same thing they've always done, expecting you to take whatever scraps they give while they prioritize your sister. I clenched my jaw, my hands curling into fists. This wasn't just about Christmas. This was about a lifetime of being second place. That night, I sat alone in our bedroom, flipping through old photo albums I hadn't touched in years. Page after page, the same pattern stared back at me. My sister, always at the center of every family event, glowing with love and attention. Me just slightly to the side. Present but never the priority. I remembered birthdays where she got the bigger party. The brand new bike she rode while I got her old one. The way our parents beamed with pride at her dance recital but barely acknowledged when I made the honor roll. And now Christmas was just one more reminder of where I stood. Or rather, where I didn't. I shut the album and exhaled shakily. For years I had made excuses for them, telling myself it wasn't intentional, that maybe I was imagining it. But I wasn't imagining it. And I wasn't going to pretend anymore. The next morning I sat Mia and Lucas down at the kitchen table. "Mommy, what's wrong?" Lucas asked, frowning. I took a deep breath. "I just wanted to talk to you both about something important. About family." Mia's eyes widened. "Are we in trouble?" I smiled softly. "No, sweetheart. But I want to tell you something I learned a little too late in life." They sat up straighter, listening intently. "Family isn't just about who you're related to," I began. "It's about the people who show up for you. The ones who make you feel loved, not just when it's convenient for them but always." Lucas tilted his head. "Like you and Daddy?" "Exactly," I said, reaching across the table to squeeze his small hand. Mia bit her lip. "Is this about Grandma and Grandpa?" I hesitated before nodding. "Yes, it is." They exchanged a glance. They were young but not oblivious. They had noticed things even if they hadn't fully understood them. Lucas poked at his cereal. "They didn't come for Christmas." Mia frowned. "And they didn't get us anything." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "They love you," I said carefully, because no matter what, I would never tell my kids otherwise. But sometimes people don't know how to show love the right way. And when people keep hurting you on purpose, you have to decide if you still want them in your life. Lucas frowned. "Like when someone at school is mean and doesn't stop?" "Yes," I said, my heart aching. "Just like that." Mia was quiet for a long moment before finally asking, "So, are we still seeing them?" I looked at my children, feeling the full weight of my decision. "No, sweetheart. We're not." Mia's eyes filled with tears, not because she missed them but because she understood. And then to my surprise she nodded. "Okay." Lucas looked relieved. "Can we make pancakes now?" I let out a watery laugh. "Yes, baby, we can make pancakes." As they scrambled off their chairs, giggling about toppings, something inside me shifted. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't trying to fix something that was never mine to fix. I wasn't chasing approval that was never meant for me. I was breaking the cycle. And that was the best Christmas gift I could have ever given my children. The letters. 2 weeks passed. 2 weeks of silence. 2 weeks of peace. And then, the letters started coming. The first one arrived in an envelope with my mother's handwriting. My stomach twisted the moment I saw it. I should have thrown it away. But curiosity, or maybe old habits, made me open it. "Daisy, sweetheart." I stopped reading, anger rising in my chest. Sweetheart. That's how she started this. After what they had done. After choosing my sister over me, over my kids. I forced myself to keep going. "I don't understand why you're doing this. We are family. Families have disagreements, but they always come back together. We never meant to hurt you. You're overreacting." Overreacting. That word again. I clenched my jaw and kept reading. "We thought you understood that things have been hard financially. We didn't have enough to do a big Christmas for everyone, so we did what we could. Your sister has been struggling too, you know. She needed our help. Why are you punishing us for that? I let out a short laugh. So that was their excuse. That they had to choose because they didn't have enough for everyone. Yet they had money for a luxury Christmas for my nieces. But nothing for my kids. I had spent years giving them the benefit of the doubt. Not anymore. I folded the letter neatly and placed it in the trash. 3 days later I got a text. This time it was from my aunt, my mom's older sister. I hesitated before opening it. Hey Daisy. I just had a long talk with your mom. She's really upset. She's been crying over this whole thing. She doesn't understand why you're being so harsh. You know how much she loves you, right? I rolled my eyes. There was the classic guilt trip. When they couldn't bully me into compliance, they tried shaming me into forgiveness. I didn't reply right away. Instead, I stared at the message, letting the weight of it sink in. My mom had been crying. But where were those tears when my kids sat by a small tree, unwrapping cheap gifts, believing their grandparents couldn't afford more? Where was that heartbreak when my sister's kids were showing off their designer sneakers and brand new electronics? Where was her sadness when I found out, through a social media post, that my own parents had celebrated Christmas without us? They weren't crying for me. They were crying because they had lost control of me. Because for the first time in my life I was refusing to be the daughter who swallowed her feelings just to keep the peace. I took a deep breath and finally typed my response. She's not upset because she hurt me. She's upset because I finally stood up for myself. And if you can't understand that, then maybe you should stop being her messenger. I hit send. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. The final attempt. The last attempt came through an old friend of my mother's. Someone I hadn't spoken to in years. A Facebook message. Daisy, I just wanted to reach out. Your mom is devastated. She doesn't know how things got so bad between you. She asked me to tell you she loves you. She's heartbroken over what's happened. I know you're upset, but can't you just talk to her? Life is too short for this kind of grudge. I stared at the message, fingers hovering over the keyboard. They still didn't get it. This wasn't a grudge. This was a boundary. A decision to stop chasing people who had made it clear I was never a priority. And yet they refused to acknowledge what they had done. No apology. No taking responsibility. Just more manipulation. This time I responded with only one sentence. If she's heartbroken, it's only because she finally got treated the way she treated me. That night, David found me sitting on the couch, my phone face down beside me. More messages, he guessed. I nodded. More guilt trips. David sat beside me, studying my face. You okay? I paused, letting the question settle. And then, to my surprise, I realized I was. For the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for my parents to care. I wasn't seeking their approval or clinging to the hope that one day they'd treat me the way I had always treated them. I was done. And that felt like freedom. David took my hand and gave it a gentle squeeze. Good. Just like that, I knew this was what real love felt like. 2 months passed. 2 months of silence from my parents, my sister, and anyone else carrying their guilt-laced messages. 2 months of peace. Of dinners with my husband and kids. Of laughter filling our home. Of weekends spent making memories, free from the weight of family obligations. At first, the absence felt strange, as if something was missing. But then I understood, it wasn't loss. It was relief. Just as I thought I had fully stepped away from the family that had cast me aside, something happened that redefined what family truly meant. Late February, my phone buzzed with a message from my Aunt Linda, my dad's younger sister. I hesitated before opening it. Linda had always been different. She never got involved in the drama, never played into my parents' games. She was kind, but we had never been close. Her message was simple. Hey Daisy. I know things have been rough with your parents. I just want you to know I see you. If you and the kids ever want to come over for dinner, my door is always open. I stared at the screen, my heart tightening. No guilt trip. No manipulation. Just an invitation, no strings attached. I thought about it for a long time before finally replying. That would be really nice. For the first time in a long while, I felt something unexpected. Hope. The following weekend, David and I packed the kids into the car and drove to Linda's house. It wasn't a mansion like my parents' home, but it was warm, filled with the scent of home-cooked food and the sound of laughter. Linda greeted us at the door, her face lighting up. "You made it." She bent down, smiling at Mia and Lucas. "You two must be freezing. Come inside, I made hot chocolate." The kids instantly adored her. As they settled in with their drinks, Linda led me into the kitchen. "I know you don't want to talk about it," she said gently. "But I just want you to know, I don't agree with what they did to you." Tears pricked my eyes. "They don't even think they did anything wrong." Linda sighed. "Of course they don't. That's how they are. They expect everyone to cater to them, to forgive them without accountability." I swallowed hard. "They didn't just do it to me. They did it to my kids." Her eyes softened. "And that's why you're doing the right thing. Protecting them from people who only love conditionally, that's the best decision you could ever make." I took a shaky breath. "Then why does it still hurt?" "Because you're a good person, Daisy. And good people always hope for better. But sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is accept that they won't change, and stop waiting for them to." I glanced around her cozy kitchen, at the warmth of her presence, at the way she welcomed us so easily. And I realized, maybe I hadn't lost family. Maybe I had finally found the ones who truly deserved to be called that. That evening was everything I had once hoped for with my own parents. Linda's husband played board games with Mia and Lucas, laughing as they made up their own rules. Dinner was filled with conversation that felt natural, not forced. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't trying to prove my worth. Linda didn't see me as the backup daughter, the one who had to accept whatever scraps of attention were left. She saw me as family, and she treated me like it. As we drove home that night, my heart was lighter than it had been in years. I glanced in the rearview mirror. My kids were fast asleep in the back seat. David reached over and squeezed my hand. "You okay?" I smiled softly. "Yeah, I think I am." Because maybe family wasn't about blood. Maybe it was about who showed up, who loved you without conditions, who made space for you without making you beg for it. Spring arrived quickly, washing away the last traces of winter. With it came something else: clarity. I no longer woke up expecting a call from my parents. I no longer hesitated before checking my messages, bracing for another attempt at guilt or manipulation. I no longer cared if they ever understood why I walked away, because I finally understood it myself. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't waiting for closure. I had already given it to myself. 4 months had passed since Christmas when my mother finally found a way to reach me again. A letter. Another one. David picked it up from the mailbox, holding it between 2 fingers like it might bite. "Do you want to read it?" I took a deep breath, staring at my mother's handwriting on the envelope. Then without hesitation I dropped it in the trash. David raised an eyebrow. "That easy?" I smiled. And for the first time I meant it. "Yeah. It is." For years I told myself that family was forever. That no matter how many times my parents chose my sister over me, no matter how often I was treated like an afterthought, I had to hold on, because that's just how family is. But I had finally learned the truth. Family isn't about DNA. It's about the people who make you feel loved, safe, and seen. And my parents? They had spent a lifetime proving they weren't those people. Easter weekend arrived, and for the first time, I felt no obligation to reach out to my parents. Instead, we spent the day at Linda's house. The kids ran through the backyard, searching for Easter eggs while Linda and I sat on the porch, sipping coffee, watching them play. "This is nice," Linda said, a soft smile on her face. "Having family around." I returned her smile. "Yeah, it is." She hesitated, then added, "I know it's not the same, Daisy. I know you probably still miss them in some ways." I thought about that. Did I miss them? Or did I miss the idea of them? The parents I had always wished they could be rather than the ones they actually were? I took a deep breath, letting the warm breeze carry away the weight that had once pressed so heavily on my chest. No, I said honestly. I don't. And for the first time I knew it was true. That night I did something I hadn't done since Christmas. I scrolled through old photos. My parents, my sister, the life I had once fought so hard to hold on to. And then one by one I deleted them. Not out of anger. Not out of spite. But because I didn't need them anymore. I was done looking back. I was done wondering if I had made the right decision. I was done giving love to people who refused to return it. I put my phone down, exhaled deeply and closed my eyes. I had let go. The next morning as I packed the kids' lunches, Mia suddenly asked, "Mommy, will we ever see Grandma and Grandpa again?" I paused, looking down at her little face, so full of innocence, so unaware of the weight behind that question. "I don't know, baby," I said honestly. Lucas tilted his head. "Do you miss them?" I thought about it. Did I? "No," I said softly. "I miss what I thought we had. But I love what we have now even more." Mia nodded as if she understood in the simple, wise way that children often do. And just like that, it was enough. Months turned into a year. And in that time I built something far better than the family I had lost. I built a life filled with love, honesty, and respect. I created new traditions with the people who showed up for me. And most importantly, I stopped waiting for love from people who had already proven they weren't willing to give it. Because the best revenge wasn't anger or bitterness. It was happiness. And I had finally found it.